Who wants a pot of coffee? I just made coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Sure, there you go. Who wants coffee? Anybody else want coffee? Who wants coffee?
And now it's time for the man with the caffeine, the new tropics for the brain. It's Coffee with Mike. Hang in, hang tight, grab your cup, and let's get this thing started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Java Chat. You're sitting here with Coffee with Mike, and my guest today is I like this particular subject because it digs into mindset, and we have a gentleman that's a specialist in it in some really cool ways, because he's like an athletic coach, but he's evolved from that into teaching anybody. But his history, well, I'm going to let him explain a little bit more of his history because he's coached some pretty phenomenal people, and a lot of mindset in and around that. So I'd like to welcome to our podcast, Christian Straka. How are you, buddy?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing your insights and your expertise. Give us a little bit of background on you, my man. Tell us a little bit about who Christian Straka is, where you're from, what you've been up to, and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah. So who is Christian Straka?
That wasn't the philosophical question yet. We'll get into that one later.
Exactly. I am originally Czech. I grew up in Germany and then in Spain. I basically had tennis as my main focus since I was a little boy, and it was my big goal to become a professional tennis player and make it to the top.
Nice.
Eventually, I had to stop early in my early 20s because of an injury. I had surgery on my shoulder, and then thanks to my mentor back in the day, I then actually transitioned to becoming a coach, a tennis coach, very early on, much earlier than, let's say the average coach who starts maybe in his 30s, 40s, starts to coach.
In your 20s?
I started, in my early 20s already.
How was that, dude? I mean, you're a coach in your 20s. You're trying to coach people. You're up against 30 somethings that have more experience. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, I was very fortunate in so many ways. My mentor then stayed my mentor, and he didn't just coach me to play, but then he continued coaching me to coach.
Nice.
So that's a very rare situation to be in. Absolutely. Where you don't just, learn to teach because you go through some, coaching course on the weekends or for a few months or whatever. But he was actually teaching me to teach for 6 years every day.
Really?
Multiple hours. I was next to him on the court, and it's kind of something that I don't personally know anybody who went through something that I was allowed to go.
That's fair. Well, in the sports realm, that's extremely rare. In the business realm, it's not so rare. But in sports, I've never heard of that. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither. To this day, I've been doing it for a while now, and still I haven't met anybody who was as lucky as I was. So, from an early stage, I was just able, also because of where I was coaching, which was in his academy in the south of Spain, and was one of the best academies in Europe. And I was coaching a whole breadth of athletes, from young kids to amateur athletes to just recreational players in their 70s, to young ambitious college players, to full-on professionals. So you really learn to teach in so many different ways, because you need to teach something different to each one of those people.
Sure.
Obviously.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I grew up. And then when I got into my late 20s, then I lived for 12 years in Spain already, and then I moved away for a brief moment to Germany back with my wife, but then decided Germany isn't quite for us anymore, and we moved here to Los Angeles.
Oh, so you're here in the States?
10 years. Yeah, I'm in LA. Exactly.
How long have you been?
10 years now.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And in that time, you've just continuously been coaching.
Yes, I mean, that's what I do. I coach for the past decade. I have shifted my focus to not just coach tennis players, and not just the physical or strategical aspects of tennis, but to the mental aspects in terms of how to take advantage of your attentional skills, how to deal with challenges. And that had evolved into just coaching athletes and developing these skills. And that's really what I do now. So I work with my own company, MindSize. I work with Adidas as their mindset coach. And
With who?
everything
With Adidas?
Yeah.
Damn, dude, that's cool.
So it's exactly what I enjoy doing, what I love doing, and I'm doing it every day. In contact with a lot of different people from all walks of life, and all have basically what you were mentioning at the very beginning when we were talking. They have the same goal in mind. They want to become better humans in whatever capacity that means for them at that moment.
Yeah, that's a big thing with me, especially right now. With your coaching, obviously, you mentioned that there was an evolution from the physical over to the mental. Where did you start noticing that was a necessity, and how did that kind of transition? I mean, where was it? Just an aha moment, or was it one of those deals where you started noticing different? Because you said you had different levels of professionals in tennis needing different things. I mean, was it through that, or was it how did that work?
Yeah, it was a combination of my own experience, noticing where my limitations were, which were much less physical and much more mental when I was a player.
Yeah.
So I know by experience what it's like if you're playing well and you're like just mentally, in flow, so to speak, or if your mind's playing tricks on you and you become anxious, nervous, afraid, or you are neither of those and you're just distracted the whole time.
Right.
And then as a coach, I realized that that's not unique to me. Basically, everybody's going through that. And it didn't matter whether those players that I was coaching were professional athletes or whether they were ambitious juniors or whether they were, older adults that are playing recreationally. The basic principle was always that the vast majority of people that I was coaching had a level of performance that was their optimum. And they have experienced that, frequently, but sporadically and for short periods of time.
Gotcha.
And because they know what it's like experientially to play at this level, what they can do, but they do it very rarely. And if they do it only for a few minutes at a time, it becomes very frustrating. So everybody on the tennis court is the whole time like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And, when you spend a lot of time with people and you just see it from the outside over and over, that they're just not paying attention to this, or they're just paying way too much attention to how upset they are, or to the past 5 minutes, or what's going to happen in 10 minutes, then you can notice all that has nothing to do with, how fit they are or how good their technique is. They don't understand the game strategically. It's just they don't have the ability to allow the challenges that are there that they can't change to be there. And on top of that, they don't have the ability to direct their attention to what is most important at this very moment so they can perform at their best.
Gotcha.
And then, however, I did see that in like the exceptional players. So I was also playing with some and coaching some people that, reached the top in the world. And whether they have developed those skills systematically, or sometimes since it is skills, you also can have them naturally developed a little further than others, just like one person is faster than another without any training, or one person is stronger than another without training. So with athletes and humans in general, some people have this ability to pay attention to something more than the next person without training. Of course, if you start training your attention, then you excel. So once I was seeing that and the difference between the very top in the world, how they're able to deal with challenges and how they're able to pay attention to what matters, and everybody else, how they didn't have that, or very rarely, I realized that's exactly what I was also struggling with. That was, I was exactly in that boat. And then For the first time in my life, I realized, well, that's actually something you can develop. That was like the big game changer for me. That was an aha moment.
Sure.
This realization that this is the challenge and the issue for a lot of people, there was, over years. That happened over a decade. Realizing that, oh, it's not out of my hand. I can become as good as paying attention as this person. Once I realized that, I dedicated my entire life to developing these skills. And once I got to a degree where I was like, oh, this is different now, then I decided that's what I want to teach. That's what I want to help people to get to, if they, if that's something that they feel like they want to improve at.
You found your zone and you said, okay, I know what the zone looks like. I know what it feels like. Here, let me show you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So you've been coaching for how long now?
18 years.
And in that 18 years, how long was it before you came to that aha moment?
8 years.
Isn't it interesting on how long it takes for sometimes it's immediate. Like you said, some people have natural abilities to do certain things and further develop from there. And some people, it takes a little bit of time. For me, 15 before I realized that I needed to be doing something different besides playing music all day.
Yes.
Which was my life.
Well, also 8 years of coaching. Don't forget that I was already playing professionally. Before that for another 16. So really it's 16 plus 8, right? So we're talking about 24 years until the aha moment came.
And how many have you had since then? I'm sure a ton.
Yes, I mean the, so to speak, aha moments. Or in other words, like insight, right? You start to understand things from a different perspective, or you're able to see and experience things from a different perspective. You're not so limited anymore in terms of your approach. That is also something that you can train and improve through mental training. So once you really dedicate time to that, that becomes over time much more frequent. So by now I can't tell you how many of those had.
Oh, sure.
But plenty.
I'm sure they're numerous by now for a lot of us when we finally get to that point of recognition. You've coached some of the best tennis players in the world.
Yes.
Of those that you have coached, whether they were world class or ambitious youngsters, do you have any stories you can share where you saw that happen with them and all of a sudden they were able to start moving into their zone, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I have coached, a lot of people over the last,
I'm sure,
almost 20 years now.
18 years, and, a lot of people.
I was very fortunate and still continue to be that the people that I spent time with, they're always extremely passionate and interested in improving at something. And most of the time in that case, it's like, what I might be able to help them with. And a lot of times that is not just the professional athletes. So whether it's somebody, who reached the #1 in the world and became world champion or won a Grand Slam in tennis, but I also have some other people that are not professional tennis players, but they are, maybe the best in the world, or I mean, not something you can say, but a very successful singer or guitar player or music producer or something. Like there are similarities between all of those people. You can see like, and what I have experienced over the years is that the similarity is that there is a obvious curiosity about really perfecting the craft. And it's not only goal driven the whole time. They all have a goal, and it might be a very ambitious goal, sometimes too ambitious, sometimes not enough. So that varies. But what really doesn't vary is their willingness and passion that they bring to the table when they are working on whatever it is that they're working on, whether they are doing a mental exercise, whether they're hitting a forehand, whether they're doing a physical exercise, they're running, or doing planks. It doesn't matter what it might be, or a strategy. There is such an interest and passion and like really paying attention to that their mind is not going off and just wanting to already achieve it.
Somebody becomes like
they
really
have that
tunnel
goal,
vision. Yeah.
and they can let it go.
Mhm.
And now they only pay attention to what really matters most. And that is what allows them to achieve that goal actually quicker, or in the first place, compared to other people.
That's huge. I think and we've heard this from a few of our other guests, that passion, resolve, commitment, things of that nature, these are the things that are necessary in order to reach the zone or the goal that you're looking for, even if it takes multiple steps to get to that goal. You just mentioned another little tidbit there, is like when they get really focused on taking it one step at a time, eventually they do make it to the goal. What would be, who's your most memorable of all the clients that you, who's the one that you remember the most?
Well, that's a challenging question, because I couldn't like pick one that I would say I remember the most, because they're so unique in their interests and dedication to what they're doing.
Sure.
But for sure, and that I wasn't coaching him at no point, but we were playing together, was Roger Federer. For sure, he stands out.
You played with Roger Federer?
Yes, we played doubles together.
That is awesome.
So, I mean, I remember, that is something that I remember like it was yesterday. And it's not yesterday. It's a while ago.
Right, exactly.
We were standing there. We were juniors. We were 17 or 16. And he was playing, and I was watching him. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how much better can somebody be who's in the top 10 in the world? I don't understand, like, how much better you could play. And then,
yeah, right.
months later, he was basically beating the top 5 in the world. So
right.
At least, like, I realized at that moment, okay, this is like as good as it gets, even though he was just 16.
What's he like in real life? Is he real cool?
Oh, he is the nicest person. He's very goofy. He's just cracking jokes the whole time.
I've heard that.
Yes,
he's just really down to earth kind of person.
Oh, such a nice guy. I mean, you know, of course, when you have a million people requesting things from you, wanting things from you, companies to work with you, people autographs, pictures with you, you have to create a barrier around you, because it drains too much energy. You can't interact with everybody. Well, it doesn't matter if you're nice or not nice. You have to just protect yourself in order to be able to function.
Yeah.
And this barrier that he has, that is a professional barrier, which is highly appropriate, very respectful, professional, and he does as good of a job as anybody else that I have seen. How he deals and interacts with people that are, let's just say, beyond this invisible barrier.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
Once there's somebody with inside this barrier, okay, then of course it's different. You can kind of let the guardrails down somewhat. Not that he's changing his personality, so to speak, but it's like there's certain things you can do in front of the camera and certain things you can't do. Right. So in private. So when he's just completely private, what I have seen, and it's not like I'm dealing with him over the past, decade or something.
Right.
He is just, the super casual, down to earth, funny, a buddy, a good friend. He doesn't put himself above anybody else because of his accomplishments or skills or financial success or standing in the world. He is basically at a point as a human being where me as a coach, I would like to get the people, or especially the young players that I teach, to see what it is like to be a human being that is not mistaking these accomplishments for something that makes them better as a human being.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he is there, you know.
Good point.
He appreciates you know, being the best in the world and having all the money and a great family, but it's just like, yeah, that's a nice add-on. And
Yeah,
what he is,
he's not letting it get to his head.
no,
That's
not to what I have ever experienced.
yeah, no, that's wonderful to hear. Kind of had a feeling that was the case. I know a few other celebrities, not in sports, but they're just like that. We've met them in person. Again, as an entertainer, you run into them. Some of them are absolute down to earth sweethearts, and they don't let the fame get to their heads. And some of them you just don't want to be around. You know, it's just kind of how it goes. The ones that are good humans, you know, like we met some of these names people won't remember, but Jim Neighbors, who played a character called Gomer Pyle, nicest guy in the world, just real sweet. Richard Pryor, who was a comedian, also one of the nicest guys. Met Arnold Schwarzenegger, definitely one of the nicest guys. Maria Shriver at the time was his wife. Met them both, sweet people. They don't let it get to them. They believe that they've gotten to where they've gotten because of the people that support them. They understand that, and they're very appreciative of it. That's really cool. Hey guys, we're gonna take a short 30-second break. When we come back, we're gonna start digging into some of this mindset stuff with Christian and what inspires and what motivates, et cetera, et cetera. So give us a little bit of time, and we'll be right back. See you in just a short 30. And we're back here at Java Chat. Christian Straka, mindset coach. We were just talking a little bit earlier about some of the stories that he remembers with people that he's coached, and he brought up an experience with somebody he didn't coach, Roger Federer, and we got into this whole thing about how celebrities are and what they're like and how cool some of them are. This second section, we always talk about what inspires, what motivates, but I do want to talk a little bit about mindset and things that can maybe some tips and tricks that can help somebody to get past some of these blocks that I'm sure Christian sees in his students or his is that what you call them, students, when you're coaching somebody, or clients probably?
Yeah, I think I call them clients.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no kind of perfect word for it.
Yeah, there really isn't, is there?
No,
it's just
kind
kind
of
of
really
like
need to come up with something.
eventually.
Most of my clients really turned into. Some of them became one of my best friends. Some of them are dear friends. You know, so it's kind of
it's interesting how inevitable
that
that becomes a reality when you because I have other friends that coaches. Some of my coaches are my best friends now today too. I mean, it's interesting to see how that plays out. A lot of times when you're talking with people that, you know, you're giving them another perspective. You're outside the storm, like we were talking about earlier, and you're giving them another perspective, and all of a sudden they have their aha moments and their epiphanies, and it's kind of hard not to become a friend of that person, because all of a sudden it's like, you know, even though I might be engaged with you as a business arrangement where there's some financial interest there, there's an emotional arrangement there too. I mean, there's no way around it, because you're literally helping somebody overcome a block, break a block, or, you know, get over, under, or through whatever it is that's holding them up. So I can completely see that. When we come and talk to about, boy, I got a lot of ums today. This is weird. We come to a lot, the second section, we talk a lot about inspirations, things that get us up in the morning and get us moving. Obviously, for you, that's probably your clients, because you know that there's going to be a breakthrough somewhere, sometime today, sometime this week. There's going to be something awesome. I want to be ready for it. Let's go. I get that part. What other things inspire you? What other things get you up in the morning or keep you moving throughout the day? Especially, like, you know, there's that nice, warm, sunny time in the afternoon around 2:00 when nap time starts calling. And, you know, I usually grab another cup of coffee, but that's different. What keeps you moving? What motivates you? Like, you had your mentor. Who else? Anybody else that you've ever followed or mentored you, or anything that you've read or anything of that nature that has helped you to just like, hell yeah, I'm in the right place. Let's keep going.
That's a great question. And I'm really surprised every time I do a fair amount of these conversations and podcasts, and every time, like, I get asked questions that I have not been asked before, and every time I'm saying, "This is a great question." This is another one of those great questions I haven't been asked yet.
This is a reflector. This is one of those reflection questions. And this is why I do it. Is because I don't think enough people do, and
Yes.
it's pretty awesome when they start. Like, you're not the first one to have this happen.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, every answer has been amazing.
Well, what gets me up? I think there's really like two kind of answers that I would give to that. One is really what motivates me, what gets me up is that I have been fortunate enough and able to do for a living what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to also, give to my friends and clients, this perspective of like, they can do what they are passionate about, or they can incorporate things that are passionate about. And then you're doing things throughout the day that are enjoyable for you. And not only things that are tedious and you actually don't want to do, it's hard work and no fun. And then hopefully further down the road, you're going to make money from it, or you're going to have some recognition or some other form of success.
Yep.
But if everything that you're doing, you're always experiencing as unpleasant, only to have the end goal be something pleasant, that's kind of not a nice way to go through life from my perspective. And
not as fulfilling. Agreed.
There's a lot of people that might not have that luck to be in a situation where they could maybe choose what they do, right? Because of the life circumstances that they're in.
Yeah.
But many people do, and they don't realize it. So also with the young people that I'm working with, is I'm trying to really show them that perspective. Like, look at my life, like I didn't go the traditional route as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to a point where I'm really content because most of the day I'm doing what I truly love. And that is doing sport and sharing with people these experiences and skills that they can develop. So I'm using them myself. And while I'm using them and I'm explaining what I'm doing and sharing with them how they can do it, they're improving these skills also. And these skills allow them to perform better in the moment of whatever they're doing. And they also allow them to be healthier and happier human beings outside of, whether they're working or doing sport or whatever.
Sure.
So that is really what gets me up in the morning, is that I am able to do what I enjoy. I'm doing enjoyable things most of the time throughout the day. It's a lot. I have a really busy schedule, but it's not something that I, dread. I'm not like, I have to do this today and I have 10 hours of work today and I have 5 hours of this. It's like, no, I don't even think about that at all, because all the things that I'm doing are mostly enjoyable. And then I do things that are not enjoyable in the moment, but they are good for me in the future. So, whether it's drinking, how much am I drinking? I think it's like 6 to 9 liters a day of water I drink. Okay, so maybe it's not the most enjoyable thing, but it has a very pleasant effect on my body. My body feels much better if I drink like this throughout the day.
Right.
So things like that.
So it's like me drinking 6 or 7 cups of coffee. It doesn't necessarily do my body.
Because it's with coffee here, I thought I'm going to bring my coffee too. I have also drinking coffee. So, and then the other answer to your question is like, who has inspired me or what have I read?
Yeah.
So I actually like to read a lot about from teachers that are teaching what I teach, but back in the day, kind of. So within the mindfulness world, a lot of times that actually is people, that are Buddhist teachers, whether it's Zen Buddhists or whether it is Theravada Buddhists or from the Tibetan traditions and so forth, and history books actually about Indian history and history from Japan, but everything into kind of mental development aspects. Like all the books have this in line, that it's basically somewhat historical, but then it also always talks about the same theme of how you can develop these skills. And by exposing myself continuously to other people that have, developed insight to a degree that most other people haven't, and they have their own language, so to speak, it opens up my perspective continuously,
Yeah.
and so that's people like Ajahn Chah. It's people like, or
I've
from
heard that name.
nowadays, it would be, like, for example, Eckhart Tolle or Joseph Goldstein, Shinzen Yang, who's my mentor. Then also from back in the day, or Bhikkhu Bodhi. He has written a lot of books that are quite dense and very educational.
These names all sound familiar.
Yeah.
And they all have to do with mental development.
Yes, exclusively. It's I enjoy reading fiction very much, but really over the past decade, I have maybe read, I don't know, a handful of books that are fiction, and everything else is nonfiction.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Most of my books are nonfiction, self-improvement, that kind of stuff, or things in marketing, et cetera, because of our agency. I have to stay up on top of stuff. Some of them are a little bit, I have to, but I've been pleasantly surprised by a few of them that, as much as I had to, I ended up wanting to, and it was actually pretty cool. What would be one of the best things that you could say is a good, what's the word? Something good to do when somebody finds themselves in a block. If they, like we were talking about that earlier, that you help athletes figure out how to get past things when they're too focused on the wrong things, when they find themselves running down the wrong road. What can somebody do to shift?
Yeah.
Get out of that.
I mean, the first thing is they need to want to shift. If you don't find yourself in a position where you have any motivation or desire to shift, then you're just where you're at. You gotta, in other words, you gotta suffer for a little longer until you get to that point. And then when you do, it depends on where you're at in your life right now. If you have some previous exposure, experience, and mental skills in terms of developing these attentional skills that you develop through mindfulness practice, then I would actually recommend that you emphasize practicing in a systematic and consistent way. A lot of people in the world by now have a good amount of experience with mindfulness practice, but they just don't do it. So it's not about like, I don't know what to do, like, how does this work? They do know how to do it. And even if they don't, maybe, just get an app, just get Brightmind or Headspace or Calm. And a lot of people have already done that for months and months. So it's now just sit down and practice again, because the practice is really what's going to have the long-term beneficial effects on you. There's no quick fix.
There never was. I completely agree.
Exactly. This is a deep fix.
Yeah.
Like my mentor says, but not a quick fix.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want a quick fix, that is kind of a quick fix. A lot of times is a little bit of a lucky break, but the quick fix is also not lasting. It might more be alleviate the issue or the challenges, but not to get rid of them, or solve them.
Yeah. Difference between dealing with the symptom and a root cause.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
However, the other aspect is also you can just expose yourself to the material, so to speak. You can talk to people that are inspiring to you, to teachers. Listen to webinars. There's on YouTube and wherever there is, millions and millions of hours of unbelievably awesome teachers that are sharing, this knowledge with you from different perspectives. So sometimes people have a very strong aversion towards actually practicing these skills, which is really the essence, because they first need to get to the point where they intellectually understand, this really would help me. And once they understand it, it can unlock this intrinsic motivation where they now want to practice.
Right.
And that can happen, through listening to people or reading these books from, whether it's people that have passed away by now or whether they're alive. You basically need to find somebody that speaks a language that you connect with. It's like you hear them speak and you're like, yeah, I get what you're saying. There's other teachers that are saying the exact same thing, but it doesn't vibe with you.
Yeah.
So you just need to find at least one of those or multiple who you enjoy listening to.
And I know that this is probably a question on people's minds when they listen to this. We talk about practicing mindfulness. How do you understand the definition? I've had two other people talk about the practicing mindfulness, and I've had two different definitions so far. I'm banking I'm going to get a third. So what is your definition of practicing mindfulness?
Well, I am going to say that people give different definitions and words, but what you're actually doing is the same. So it really, mindfulness by now is very clearly set. Like we know exactly what it is. So even if you have two people, that are experienced.
It's perspective. Yeah, there it was a perspective on it. That's why I asked.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like really like, I think it's important for your listeners to know that even though you might have two, or maybe now me as a third person give you a different explanation, what you're actually doing when you're being mindful, it's always the same. Okay. It's just a different way of talking about it or trying to explain that same thing.
Okay.
So the way I explain what being mindful is you're using three different skills intentionally, simultaneously. And these three skills are concentration, clarity, and coolness. So the first skill is concentration, is your ability to pay attention to whatever you want to pay attention to for however short or long. It can be your breath. It can be what's going through your mind. It can be how you feel emotionally. It can be externally, something you're looking at or something you're hearing or smelling or tasting. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to pay attention to could be the object of concentration. And you can pay attention to it for 2 seconds or for 2 hours. It's up to you. The second skill, clarity, is what people describe as awareness, being in the moment, presence, and so forth. So that's your ability to be able to track what you are paying attention to in real time. So if you direct your attention to your breath, let's say, then you're using concentration, you're directing it there, and you're keeping it there. But if you now notice that your chest is expanding and contracting, that's clarity. That now you're aware of what's happening. You're tracking in real time what you're feeling.
Which, of course, now I'm doing because you're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Christian. Quite effective. Appreciate that.
The third skill, coolness, is what other people describe as equanimity, openness, acceptance, non-judgment, and so forth. So that is your ability to try to be equally open to pleasant and unpleasant experiences without trying to suppress experiences that are unpleasant and without trying to cling to experiences that are pleasant. So it's like a matter of fact, third option in the middle between those two. So when you're being mindful, you're doing these three things. Other people say it's non-judgmental present moment awareness.
Right.
Okay. Is what a lot of people say also. But if you break it down, that's exactly what I just said.
Yep.
It's just using different terms, you know?
You got the 3 C's in there. I learned that in our meditations from some of my elder brothers in martial arts. One of the Sihing, I think he was at the time, and he explained to me. He says, when you meditate, wherever you do it, however you do it, remember that you're going to see a lot of thoughts pop up. Your mind will never be blank. It's impossible. Your brain is always working on something. It's always focusing on something. So he says, when it does come up, you let it come up, present itself, whether it's good or not. Acknowledge it and then let it go. And that's so you just pass through all of that to keep yourself in that zone of calm. When you come out of it, it's like nothing can bug me at that point. It's a complete zone out. And not in a bad way either. It's like I can stand up, I can focus on what I need to focus on, I can get it done, and it gets done in good time. When I don't do that, then the other part, you lose coolness, like almost completely. It becomes a block because you're stuck on, oh, that asshole said blah 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 blah, or that person's doing this and this is really irritating me. Why? Why does it irritate you? What is it about? And it's always the going back and going internal. What is it about you that's bothering you that person's actions are bugging you? Are they hurting you? No. Why is it bothering you? If it doesn't really affect your life, why does it bother you?
Yeah. Yeah. So those, that's what the mind does. It kind of tries to understand things and have kind of come up with answers. And then you might have an insight, like what you were just like basically talking about. It's like, oh, actually, if I really, analyze this a little bit, this doesn't really affect me,
Yeah.
However, that's not what it feels like.
Right.
But it's hard to realize that in the moment because you're not realizing in real time what it is that you're feeling. And anything that's going through your mind, whatever kind of thought that might be, will become very sticky in your mind, so to speak, like you believe it and you can't let go of it if there is a strong somatic connection.
Right.
If you have a thought in your mind, but you're somatically neutral, so to speak, it doesn't kind of trigger you in any way, positively, negatively, pleasant, unpleasant, then it's kind of just like a thought. It's like, the sky is green. Like, whatever, it's raining elephants. That's a thought. Like, it's just like, I hear it. Okay. There's
I
no
need a cave.
connection. But there might be another thought that will trigger a strong emotional reaction.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that thought is not so easy to let go of. And that's because of the intricacy of how all your sensory experiences kind of interact with each other.
Right. When you're looking at that from a sports standpoint, where do you see that apply? If somebody's trying to perform in a zone, where does that come in?
So if somebody's in the zone or, in a flow state or whatever you want to call it, flow state is definitely one of the terms that they're using more in the scientific community now, which is pretty well defined. And it includes multiple skills that are working at the same time. Also, one of them is, for example, decision making. Another one, so if you're not needing to make decisions, you're not really in a flow state, so to speak. Okay, it might be another state that's also very pleasant, but like the flow state nowadays by Csikszentmihalyi has been defined as, oh, you need to be needing to make decisions. You also need to be performing just above your optimal performance. If it's too difficult for you, you won't be able to enter it. If it's too easy, you won't be able to enter it either.
Got it.
However, 3 of those skills within the flow state are the 3 skills that I just talked about.
Right.
And so another way to look at it is when you're in a flow state, then one thing that's happening is that concentration, clarity, and coolness are at least momentarily significantly elevated. So you're much more concentrated, you're much more aware of what's happening, and there's much less resistance towards your current experiences. And those 3 skills can be elevated also if you're not in a flow state. So you can just be sitting and, turning your attention to your breath, or you can be walking, and that's not very challenging, and you're not making decisions, but your concentration, clarity, and coolness could be much elevated, and especially if you're training them.
That makes sense. I go for long walks, and that actually happens. So it makes sense why that is now. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. You kind of gave me an aha moment today. That's pretty cool.
You see?
Yeah, just a little bit, but a little bit at a time. When you're in a coaching situation and you see somebody that's in that block, how do you get them to understand all of this? I mean, when somebody comes to you fresh, they have no idea what a coach is. You have to kind of educate them, obviously, first. But when you see that, how do you bring them through that process? What do you tell them?
Well, once again, I have one very big advantage, which is when people come to me, they're very malleable. I can like form them like clay because they are willing to
Well, yeah, you have to be.
do what I tell them. There's
Right.
no resistance.
That's
It's
good.
not like maybe a very good friend or my mother, I tell her and it was like, no, she wants to do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
So when
We
people
all know
come
that
to
one.
me, like there's a lot of acceptance, and interest in doing exactly what I'm telling them. So that means a lot of equanimity and
Yeah.
openness towards, the information I'm giving them. That's
Sure.
very, very helpful.
Yeah.
And then I take two approaches. One is I explain to them why this is helpful, so they don't just have to take my word for it. So they
Right.
intellectually can somewhat understand why this is beneficial for them and like what is happening, what they are doing voluntarily or involuntarily that is actually making their life more difficult.
Got it. Yeah.
And then we transform that into an experiential part where they actually need to do something. So now that I try to somewhat, what's the word? I'm losing the word.
Darn English.
Give a little bit of food to their curious mind.
There you
and
go.
now their curiosity is kind of fed.
Yep.
Now they're even more willing to just do it.
Yep.
Okay. Now it's not about understanding or thinking about it anymore. Now it's actually just pay attention to where your arm's at. Just pay attention to, are you tense right now or are you relaxed? Pay attention to, are you watching what you need to be watching, or is your attention, maybe on what you're thinking right now?
Right.
So now I'm basically incorporating exercises where they are using these three skills. So they're practicing mindfulness, but it is tailored to that current situation because performance and mindfulness in combination is very situation specific. So if you learn to pay attention to your breath, if you're walking and your ability to pay attention to your breath for longer without getting distracted improves, that doesn't necessarily mean that your attention also improves in how you need to watch the tennis ball.
Right.
So attention is situation specific. And that's why mindfulness training that helps with anxiety or depression might not necessarily help with performance enhancement. Of course, there's some overlap, and of course, if you're less anxious, you might perform better. But it's not that specific where you're like, oh, I am better at paying attention to this and that right now, which I need to do.
Right.
So we are doing situation performance specific mindfulness exercises during the physical exercises. So it's always a combination of physical and mental training.
Got it. Are you only coaching in the sports realm right now, or has your practice gone beyond that?
But I always use the athlete's mindset, so to speak.
Sure.
So even if I work, with Netflix and I give like a workshop for them, or with Facebook we did something, then it's always kind of the sports aspect that I bring to the table. And there's just a lot of interest in that. And there's a lot of other people that are amazing at, giving a different perspective and approach. So that's what they should do. And I kind of try to stick to like, this is what I have spent my life on doing.
Yeah.
And if people, and a lot of people are, and some people aren't interested in how the sports mindset and techniques and you can leverage for your life, maybe even if you're not doing sports,
right?
Then that's where I can help you the most. And if you're more interested, in something that is completely unrelated to sports, what I teach will still help you, but it might not be so interesting to you. So there's, other coaches that are unbelievable that you want to kind of listen to.
So when you're out in the corporate world, since you've mentioned Netflix, Facebook, and I think you're still on with Adidas, if I remember correctly. What's that like? I mean, what kind of response? Because you said you get a lot of response that's in the positive and some not in the positive. No human is the same, obviously, but I mean, what kind of response do you get from those people when you're doing or sharing your perspective as far as the sports mindset and things of that nature? Are they catching it? Is it something that they really pick up, or is it something that it takes a little bit of explanation, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a little bit of explanation, but also not too much.
That's good.
Once, basically what I explained here a few minutes ago with the
Mhm.
3 different skills working
Mhm.
at the same time,
Mhm.
intentionally. And once people realize that these skills are not skills that they need to kind of conjure up from nothingness, they already have these skills. Everybody has these skills. Nobody is never aware. Nobody can never pay attention, and nobody is always reactive to everything. So everybody has these skills,
Mhm.
and they're active in certain moments more and in certain moments less. But
Kind of
what people do rarely is that they use these skills on purpose.
right.
So once they realize, like, oh, I already have the skills, and now I use the skills, but sporadically and unintentionally. And now all I need to do, so to speak, is start to use them intentionally and systematically. These skills will improve. It's just like going running. Like everybody who is physically healthy and doesn't have any disability can walk and run. But if you are just walking and sometimes running a little bit, just as life requires it, you will never become faster and you will never be able to run longer. If anything, it will actually decline over time. You
Yeah.
will become slower. You will be able to walk shorter distances.
Right.
So, but even if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, if you start to develop your ability to walk and run, which you have in a systematic and consistent way, you will be able to run a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a marathon. Like there's no question that you will be able to do that if you put in the time. And it's the same with these mental skills that everybody has.
Yeah, I just had that type of conversation with one of our guests, um, who's a spiritual guide, breathwork therapist kind of person. She's run a couple of marathons, and same path of thought. It was, getting into it and doing it. Never thought that she could. Um, she mentioned that her most memorable was the Chicago Marathon. She had she had issues. I don't know if it was chronic injury, or if it was just not able to perform at level that she believed she should. And coach said, "Kill it. Let's take 3 weeks off." And then right at the time of the marathon, she jumped in and had her fastest time ever. And what you're saying there is just kind of like I'm hearing in her head, I need a break. And because she was training and training and training, and now it's like, okay, I can't. If I do any more, I'm gonna really hurt myself. And then got out there and blew the doors off of the deal. And I think that's a part of practicing mindfulness. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is knowing when you need to step out. Your body only can handle so much, like you said. It needs to be trained if you want to do more. Any skill needs to be trained if you want to do more. But you also need to know when to take a break. And I think a lot of people forget that part because they get into the grind and they think that's the flow state. And it's like, no, at least not in my experience. It hasn't been that way. There have been times when I've had to take off a whole week. I didn't like it, but I came back next week with a fire that nobody could stop me.
Yeah, so you're bringing up an interesting point, and that's starting to be quite subtle. But like, I would not say that being mindful means that you can make better decisions, or you're making better decisions because you're mindful.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a very strong connection, which is the more mindful you are, the better informed your decisions will be. So if you are not mindful, let's just say, and the guest on your podcast is running, and they are not turning their attention, let's just be super extreme, okay? They're just listening to music the whole time, and they're trying to distract themselves, and they're actually accomplishing that they're getting distracted. And
Right.
while they're running, they feel fatigue and they feel pain in their knee, and they have a whole bunch of issues. And then it gets to a point where they're in so much pain that they can't distract themselves anymore from it, and now it's too late.
Yeah.
And now they have to take a break, and the break will take very long until they have recovered from it, and they will miss the Chicago Marathon.
Right.
If you're mindful while you're running the whole time, not just once, but every training that you're running, that means you're directing your attention, at least to some part, to your body, because that's the activity that you're doing.
Right.
And you're tracking in real time whether you have pain, whether you're fatigued, whether you feel good. Are you relaxed? Is there tension? Are you performing the movement technically the right way? You're tracking your body movement and so forth. And you're experiencing unpleasant as well as pleasant somatic experiences. So relaxation might be pleasant, tension, a quick, fast breath, fatigue might be unpleasant. And when you're tracking that in real time for most of the time, then you will notice whether you're actually getting to a degree that starts to be unmanageable, or whether this is actually you're fatigued, but really your mind is just telling you, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. But it's actually your mind telling you you can't do it. It's not like that your body is not functioning.
Right.
And that's how you can then make better decisions. Should you take a break? Should you not? But the decision of taking a break or not is not being mindful. That's now you're using your intellect, and your conceptual mind in order to, analyze the information that you got through being mindful.
That makes absolute sense. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to sit with that one later on for sure. I think for most people, and I sure hope my listeners heard all of that, because what you just said right there is a huge point that I think most people miss. I really do. I'd be willing to bet that a bunch of your own clients have missed that in the past at some point.
Yeah, because it's subtle. There's and a lot of subtle things are significant, but because they're so subtle, they're so hard to kind of detect and keep track of. So things get a little bit confused, and like you feel like just at the very beginning, people feel like, oh yeah, if I meditate, that means my mind will calm down and I will not be thinking. Why is that a misconception of a lot of people? It is a misconception because when you actually meditate for years and years and years, the effect of it eventually will be that you will experience some periods of time where there will not be thoughts in your mind, and you will notice silence in your mind. That definitely does happen, but it is an effect of many years and hours of training. Just like if you train running, eventually you can run a marathon.
Yep.
But it's not what you're doing right now. When you start to meditate for the first few years, what you're noticing is actually that your mind is much more active than you ever thought it would be. So there's this contradiction. And this is how a lot of these things, if you start off, become very confusing, and there's a lot of doubt, and you think you're not doing it right, and there's just misconceptions because of lack of information. You just haven't talked to enough people, you haven't read enough. So it's very normal. It just
certainly haven't practiced enough. That's for sure. Yeah, that same thing happened to me when I first started meditation. I started realizing my head was full of a lot of shit, and getting to the point of quieting all of that down it took a few years. I mean, it's even to this day. I mean, my mind's still active as all get. What was that one meme? Your mind all day, dead. As soon as it's time to go to sleep. Oh, by the way, here's some philosophical thoughts that I was thinking about sometime today. And you're just like, no, not now, please. I just want to go to bed. It's hilarious how the mind works. And I say that with love, obviously, for our own brains. We're amazingly intelligent beings. I just think practicing mindfulness would probably bring us into a better awareness and presence. Guys, we're going to take another 30-second break. And when we come back, we're going to figure out what's next. What's Christian going to be up to next? We'll be back in about 30 seconds. And we're here back for the last section of this session at Java Chat. with Christian Straka. And Christian's brought a buddy of his little fur baby there. His name is Apache. And an Apache is a what again? What is it?
He's a Cocker-Wawa. I don't know if that's the official name, but that's just what my wife and I named.
It works. He's part Cocker Spaniel and he's part Chihuahua. And
Exactly.
guys, look at how adorable this guy is.
Apache.
He is an adorable little one. Yeah, we have a lot of the people on our team all have dogs or cats or some kind of pet. And we adore them. That's awesome. So this last section is basically what's in the future for Christian Straka. What's next other than we know you're going to be coaching. It's your passion. That's not going anywhere. But I mean, are there any other things that are going on? Any webinars coming up, any books being written, any kind of cool stuff that's going on where you can teach other people as well?
Yeah, actually, many things at different stages of development.
Nice.
A book is in the works, but
good.
at the very early stages.
That's all right. That's good.
Then we have, let me go through the list in my head. With Adidas, we're wrapping up, expanding to other sports, so to speak. And also with a dear friend of mine, Amira Omar, she focuses heavily on culture, inclusivity, and diversity.
Love it.
How we're incorporating mindfulness there. Then with my company, MindSize, that's where I invest a lot of energy.
Sure.
To help people really develop these skills that we've been talking about for the past hour. And I've spent all of last year with my team to develop a program that is now accessible to anybody in the world. That
awesome.
was really
awesome.
My big goal, and we have done that now. And then I'm also working on a project, or I just finished a project actually with a company called Ultra Human.
Nice.
That is an app where my company and Ultra Human have partnered together and created a 14-week program where you learn to incorporate mindfulness into running. That was a lot of fun. That took this year. That's coming out later this year, next year. And then I'm working on another project with a dear friend of mine, former client. That's how it happens.
Yeah, of course.
Where we are working on developing a company where we kind of attempt to revolutionize the fitness industry by helping and supporting the people that help other people. So we are not focused on, so to speak, the end client, the people that take the fitness classes.
You're talking about the people giving the fitness classes.
Exactly. So we want to help them to become, more successful entrepreneurs, to be able to stream it online, to do it in person in a good facility, to have more accessibility, more flexibility.
Absolutely.
Have everything, COVID safe and and also combine different wellness aspects. So it's not just fitness, in all of its forms, but it's really wellness, mental health, whether it is psychotherapy, mindfulness practice, in the future might be psychedelic therapy might be involved. Like there's so many different avenues wellness is going right now. And we want to help all of the people that make it their life's goal to help other people to make their life easier.
That's going to be huge because, and it's interesting, this path that you're mentioning that you're going down. Because everybody's always focused on the end client. People forget the coach, people forget the teachers, people forget the service workers, the people that are there serving other people. That's huge, dude. That's going to be something else. I can tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone servicing that. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Where can people find you online, man? Can they follow you? Like, are you on Instagram, Twitter? Where
I'm on
you at?
Instagram, straka.la is my handle. And my website is mindsizesports.com.
MindSize Sports?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And then you have anything on Facebook yet?
I have also Facebook, straka.la. Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
Exactly. So Straka.la, you will find it.
Wherever it is, it's Straka.la.
Straka.la.
That works. That's his domain name. If you haven't figured that out, I mean,
exactly.
.la is obviously the extension for. Well, I think it's the extension for Los Angeles. Is that correct?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Even
well,
though in South America, my friends call me Strakala.
Strakala. I love it. That's cool. Strakala. As long as it's not Louisiana.
Exactly.
Not that that's a bad thing. There'd be a lot of Creole in that one. Guys, first off, thank you, Christian, very much for, again, coming and hanging out, sharing your expertise, sharing some insights, sharing some tips and things about, practicing mindfulness and what it means to be mindful. A lot of the wellness side of things I don't think gets addressed enough, which is why I keep looking for people like you to come and share your perspective and share, some of the things. Because again, like you said, they might vibe with one, they might not vibe with another. And I want to make sure that someone in there is going to be a good vibe for them, and they'll pick up on it, and hopefully it'll change their life a little bit. So thanks again and thank you, Apache, for hanging out with us for the last part. We appreciate that. Look at him. He's just snuggled in now. He was getting a little restless there for a second, and all of a sudden he's just like,
he was moving a little bit.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he's just like, yep, I think Dad just wants me to sit. Perfect. All right. Well, y'all know how we love to end these. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell right next to that, so you know when we get another killer guest like this one come on and share their insights and expertise. If you're listening to us on any of the 11 platforms, I think, that we're syndicated to, make sure you download it or subscribe on that platform. It's fine. If you're listening to us on anchor.fm, that's our home base. Feel free to support us there. Every little bit helps. And it always makes sense to take a moment in a day and do these things that Christian shared. Block out a time. If you really want to start seeing some clarity, take a moment to get out of the craziness. And we like to call it recenter. Everybody has a different term for it. But get present with yourself. Get present with what's going on and find some clarity again, and then get back into it. So stay up, stay safe, stay healthy, and live. For Christian Straka and myself, Coffee with Mike. Ciao for now.
For more information on Java Chat, visit www.javachatpodcast.com. You've been listening to Coffee with Mike on Java Chat. Tune in weekly to this podcast for the next episode. You can also download or subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. A production of Oasis Media Group, LLC. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.